Greatest mysteries. A young woman from a small, typically safe town vanishes without a trace. Rumors and so many questions have been circling for the last 29 years. Now there is renewed hope that answers may finally be found about the disappearance of Leigh Calico.
They've turned her into an urban legend. I always felt like, oh, she's gonna come walking in the door at any time. People know the name. A lot of times they don't know what it is, they just know to be afraid of it.
It is what happened on the afternoon of September 20th, 1988, on a rural highway south of Belen. 19-year-old college student Leigh Calico vanished.
About 50 yards from there, we did find some bicycle tracks that matched the type of bike she was riding.
We're crowding through everything we can, and we're really not finding much leads on anything.
29 years later,
Having that hope day after day after day after day.
her family is still searching for answers.
This isn't just an urban legend. This isn't, just a story that was out there, a photograph or something people heard about or warned their kids about. This was a person, and she deserves it.
Her sister Michelle isn't ready to stop looking.
Do you feel hope that this case is solvable now?
Absolutely.
After years of lead after lead,
One side of you hopes for it to be resolved, the other side doesn't want them to find anything.
and disappointment and heartache,
There's that hope that, oh, we're getting close. We're getting so close.
Michelle has taken matters into her own hands with Melinda Esquivel, Tara's classmate and friend.
I didn't have any of my friends, and I was so miserable.
A friendship that blossomed on a band trip back in high school.
She said, nope, you're hanging with us. And she took me and hugged me, took me in, befriended me, and that's how we became friends.
After Tara's disappearance, Melinda moved on with life. Then one night, she was home for Christmas, at dinner with friends, and Tara came up.
The response I got from people at the table who were my own classmates said, oh, Melinda, the whole town knows who did it. And I said, what? I gasped and I said, what do you mean the whole town knows who did it? There are people in the world looking for her.
And so began the mission, Justice for Leigh Calico. Melinda, a filmmaker, decided to create a documentary. But when she saw the case file at the sheriff's office,
They were in shambles, Kim, in shambles. There were files with people's names on it and there was nothing in there. And these are the suspects or persons of interest.
the mission took a new turn.
I was like, okay, now what? What do we do now? And so we started investigating.
It's taken them to places they didn't expect.
People did not want to talk about it.
My life has been threatened. My family's lives have been threatened.
But with time has come progress.
There's different areas that we're searching that they were overlooked before.
There are too many people involved that, powerful forces that do not want this case solved.
Secrets hidden for years finally being told.
People have passed that had strong ties to the community that may have deflected people from coming forward and talking and getting involved in it. And I think that has made a difference.
Michelle and Melinda have shared all the information they've gathered with investigators at the Valencia County Sheriff's Department, which remains the lead agency on the case. They're also releasing some of what they're learning on a podcast.
After that 2005 interviews with the Sheriff's Department, it started again. The threats, the anonymous phone calls to my phone. They knew that Leigh Calico rode her bike from rural communities straight over all the way up to the train track.
That podcast now being shared around the country. Hollywood stars and many others joining the fight, Justice for Leigh.
We're actually making progress, and the more national attention we bring to this, the sooner we can bring her home.
Despite this picture many believed could be Leigh found in a parking lot in Port St. Joe, Florida, months after her disappearance, Michelle and Melinda believe the story goes no further than Valencia County.
When I really discovered what happened to her, I just couldn't even believe it. I think what bothered me the most is the silence in the community. How is it that these people I grew up with in Belen can't recognize the right thing to do? How is that possible? We all went to the same school, we all went to the same church, and they can't decipher right from wrong. It's not fair. She didn't deserve it.
Michelle and Melinda say it is time for this to end.
My parents worked so hard, and they tried so hard, and they gave up everything to find her. And when my mom passed, I can't imagine how heartbroken she must have felt. And I look at my dad now with his wondering eyes and also disappointment, not knowing she would have been somebody who contributed to society. She's a good person. And it just makes me so sad. And I think if that was me, she wouldn't let go. There's no way she'd let go.
This is a big thing for someone who's not a family member, who's not law enforcement, to take on. Why in here do you feel like you need to get this done?
Because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do.
It's been a very long time. And it's impacted not only our family, but a community. We would just really like to bring her home. She was a person and she deserves it. She's not just an urban legend. She's not just a photograph. She's a person.
Much of the information uncovered cannot be released to the public because the FBI and the Sheriff's Department are still building a case. The Sheriff's Department did recently appoint a new detective to handle it. Now, they say there are still many missing pieces to this puzzle. They are still asking anyone with information, no matter how little, to call it in to the FBI tip line or the Sheriff's Office.
The mysterious disappearance of Tara Calico. In July of 1989, a color Polaroid of an identified young girl and a little boy was found by a woman in a convenience store parking lot in Port St. Joe, which is a beach town approximately 1 hour south of Panama City, Florida. The woman who found the photograph in a vacant parking space said she saw a man driving a windowless Toyota cargo van parked there when she arrived at the store. The man was described as being in his 30s with a mustache. The photograph had recently been taken, and officials at Polaroid said the picture was taken after May of 1989 because it was not available until then. Pictured alongside the bound woman is a copy of V.C. Andrews' book, My Sweet Audrina. It is a 1982 bestseller about a young girl who is haunted by her sister's death. The thriller touches upon rape, post-traumatic stress disorder, and autism. This photograph made national news and a current affair, where family and friends of a young missing New Mexico woman saw a haunting resemblance. Tara Calico had vanished 10 months earlier on September the 20th, 1988. They contacted Tara's mother, Patty Doyle, who insisted she meet with investigators and see the photograph herself firsthand. After viewing the photograph, Patty insisted that the picture was her missing daughter, even noting a discoloration on the leg of the woman pictured being identical to a large scar on Tara's leg she had sustained in a car accident. Not to be overlooked, V.C. Andrews was also Tara's very favorite author. The photograph has been carefully analyzed by the FBI, who felt that the photograph was not Tara, while Scotland Yard declared it definitely was. On Tuesday, September the 20th, 1988, Tara had left her home at approximately 9:30 a.m. to go on a daily bicycle ride along the New Mexico State Road 47 in Belen, a route she took almost every morning. A small town, Belen only had a population of 7,152 in 2015. Sometimes accompanied by her mother, Patty had warned her daughter to carry mace with her when she rode, but Tara rejected her mother's suggestion. On the morning of Tara's disappearance, she playfully and jokefully told her mom to come and get her if she did not return by noon, because she had plans to meet her boyfriend at 12:30 p.m. to play tennis. So when Tara did not return, anxiously, Patty drove south along Tara's usual bike route but could not find her. In the process of searching, she spotted a Boston cassette tape laying on the side of an old rugged road. She immediately called the police. Later, police would find pieces of Tara's Sony Walkman along the road. A pink Huffy bike would later be found in a ditch at a secluded campground approximately 20 miles from Tara's home. Several witnesses told police they had witnessed an older, light-colored pickup truck, about a 1953 model, with a camper shell following close behind her as she rode along the highway. Quite possibly, Tara would not have even noticed if a vehicle was following behind her while she listened to Boston on her Walkman. The little boy in the disturbing photograph remains unidentified until this day. Initially, when the photograph was found, the mother of Michael Henley said she was almost certain the boy in the Polaroid was her missing son. Sadly, Michael Henley was found deceased in June of 1990 in the Zuni Mountains, near where his father and he were hunting when the child vanished in April of 1988. It was determined that little Michael had died of exposure. Another missing child case had caught the attention of law enforcement as the picture strongly resembles David Michael Boyer, missing since April the 26th of 1989, from Willow, Alaska, about 5 hours south of Fairbanks. David was last seen walking along Parks Highway, about 11 miles on his way to a friend's home. David once hitchhiked to Wasilla, approximately 30 miles from his home, and described as a very independent young child. Canine searches tracked his scent to Parks Highway, but the scent was lost at the road, and there have been no signs of him since. In 2008, the sheriff of Valencia County claimed he had received information about what happened to Tara. A witness came forward telling law enforcement 2 teenagers had been following Tara in a Ford pickup truck, trying to talk to her and grabbing at her. Apparently, they accidentally hit Tara and panicked, and then killed her. No further information surfaced from this allegation, and no arrests were ever made. Tara's stepfather disputed the sheriff's claim, telling media the sheriff should not have released this information without enough circumstantial information to make an arrest. In 2009, 20 years after the Polaroid was found, pictures of a young boy were mailed to the Port St. Joe Police Department. David Barnes, the sheriff, received 2 letters with photographs included. One was postmarked on June the 10th, 2009, and the other was postmarked on August the 10th, 2009, from Albuquerque, New Mexico. One letter contained a photocopy of a young boy with very light brown hair, with a band of black ink drawn over the boy's mouth as if it were covered in the 1989 Polaroid. The second letter contained the original picture. On August the 12th, the Star newspaper in Port St. Joe received a letter, also from Albuquerque, with the same picture, with the same hand-drawn mouth covering. Law enforcement has never been able to confirm the original Polaroid and the pictures received in 2009 are the same little boy. None of the 3 letters contained information indicating the child's identity. Though there was not a reference to Tara's case, police felt confident it was potentially connected. 2 other Polaroids have been found over the years, and some believe may be of Tara. The first was found near a construction site. It was a blurry photograph of a seemingly nude girl with tape over her mouth. light blue strip fabric behind her, similar to the fabric seen in the original Polaroid. It too was taken on film, not available until 1989. The second photograph is of a terrified woman bound on an Amtrak train, possibly abandoned, her eyes covered with gauze and big black frame glasses, with a male passenger taunting her in the photograph. Of the many photographs and unidentified remains Patty had to view to help the police throughout the country rule out these three could never be ruled out by her mother. Sadly, Patty passed away in 2006, never finding out what happened to her daughter. Tara's father passed away in 2002. However, with advancement in technology, Tara's remaining family and her stepfather still hope to find her someday, and they believe someday they will find out what happened to Tara. Valencia County Sheriff's Office is not actively pursuing any of the photographs as possible leads. Instead, they are working with the FBI analyzing local suspects given the information provided to the Sheriff's Office years ago that Tara was killed by local residents of her small community. Supported by witness reports claiming Tara was followed prior to her disappearance, and she was also receiving threatening notes placed on her vehicle prior to her disappearance. Michelle Doyle, Tara's stepsister, told People magazine when asked if the Polaroid with the young identified boy is Tara, she responds, "If I had to say yes or no, I would definitely say yes, that is her," says Michelle. However, she added, "Does that make sense? No, that's not the story that makes sense." Current lead investigator Sergeant Joseph Rowland at Valencia County Sheriff's Department said that the vehicle in the first Polaroid was identified as a van, and the Sheriff's Department received many tips about vans that were not fruitful. Patty Doyle died in 2006 after suffering several strokes after relocating from New Mexico to Florida with her husband. Friends and family say her daughter was always on her mind. She never gave up hope that she would someday find her. She and her husband even had a bedroom they kept for Tara, placing passing birthday and Christmas gifts there that has never been opened. Even after the strokes, Patty would see a young girl on a bicycle and she would point and write down her daughter's name, Tara. Her husband would have to tell her, "No, that is not Tara." Tara's older brother, Chris, told People magazine he believed the stress of his sister's disappearance and lack of information and resolution is significantly what shortened his mother's life. The police would send photos of every possibility, even including pictures of bodies, dismembered bodies, and every time Mom would get an envelope with the newest pictures, she had to look at them, Chris told People. She couldn't not look at them, but it tore her up every time. The first Polaroid told Patty her daughter might still be alive. She survived whatever and whoever abducted her. A case that is not exactly cold, Tara's family still till this day holds on to hope, and many of the missing person investigators have taken this case into retirement with them in hopes that someday, maybe, someone has some information and know Tara's whereabouts. A case that happened so long ago, but until today, has never been forgotten. Tara's case still remains open, unsolved, and potentially cold. If you have any information or know anything about Tara's whereabouts, please call the number here or any sheriff's department. It would be greatly appreciated. Her family still holds out hope that someday she will be found. This concludes tonight's bedtime story with Unjustified. Have a very good night, and until next time.